It's a fifth line day. We're in gate 50 and the fifth line is called consistency. The fifth line always carries within it the hopes of the hexagram to be able to really complete itself. We see with the first line, the immigrant, that awareness grows through stimulation. And when you get to the fifth line and consistency, you have to get to the point where you've gathered enough awareness so that you can be consistent in the way in which the law is established. When we reached this fifth line process as a species, this was the moment that it became possible to layer collective laws over the tribe. This was a very important transition in our development. This was a point in which we could layer values that transcended tribal peculiarities and could include many different tribes together under the same umbrella. Most of that experimentation took place in the New World, because the very nature of the New World was that it was open to a broad immigrant pool. Now, everybody bringing their own tribal values with them. And so it was necessary to be able to find a mutative value system that could cover them collectively. The other side of that is the conquering nations, where we find the empire builders who superimposed collective value systems over their tribal conquests, like the English, the Portuguese, or the Spanish did, well, many countries have done with their colonies throughout the world. Gate 50 is a very, very powerful gate, because the moment that you can change the law here, then you open up the possibility to the larger whole. You open up the possibility of eliminating the suspicion and separateness that's inherent in being tribal. There's a lifetime learning here, and it says when continuity has brought success, it should not be tampered with. The key here is consistency. After all, the fifth line is always going to speak for what is the essence of the hexagram, and that consistency is necessary for us. In the exaltation, we have the disciplined and natural conservatism to avoid unnecessary change. The conservative awareness that basic principles should not be abandoned casually. Can you feel the echo of the 32 here? The gate that we looked at last. And notice that it doesn't say that you can't abandon basic principles. It says that they shouldn't be abandoned casually. The nature of the fifth line is, all right, this is what I am. I am not easily going to allow that to change. The 50 line 5 is a very important step. Fifth line values are only going to be brought in a time of crisis. So in that time of crisis, you can have the fifth line heretic who comes in and who says, yes, we are Christians, and these tribes people, they worship jaguars. Maybe we should just let them get on with worshipping jaguars because it doesn't affect how we collect our taxes. This is about getting to the point where you recognize that certain principles should be maintained. The right to religious freedom, for example. It's important not to stick your fingers into that kind of tribal business because it gets really messy really quickly. And the moment you touch any of those sacred places, you will never get those tribes to allow themselves to be part of the collective whole. The consistency of the fifth line here in its values is to recognize that even though there are larger values that are of greater benefit to the whole, that doesn't mean you strip away all of the values. Some of them have a right to be maintained. In the detriment, a perverse reaction to rebel against the methodology of one's very success. When effectively stimulated, the drive to rebel against basic principles. So this is where we find genocide or ethnic cleansing as a general theme. It doesn't mean that everyone with the 50 line 5 should be locked up for war crimes. It's a general theme, and it says, I don't care whether that tribe worships the jaguar. Nothing's going to work for us unless we have continuity. And even though the jaguar is just a primitive version of what we're offering, things are going to work a hell of a lot better if we all go to the same place to worship. We've not yet reached the sixth line. You know, this is the left angle cross of wishes, and as long as the fifth line stage still exists in the world, it's basically an unfulfilled wish. Now, our collective wisdom has not in any way been able to eliminate the power of the tribal consciousness. It has not yet been able to find a way to successfully integrate tribal values into the global collective. It's an unfulfilled wish. It's the only time that a wish has a chance of coming true. That's in moments of crisis with the fifth line. That's when there's a possibility. Neither the exaltation or the detriment is about good or bad. We know this by now. We've talked about this before. This is the completion of a hexagram process, and therefore you come to the point in the fifth line where you recognize that what has worked should remain. You have a law that says thou shalt not kill, and it's consistent, and you want to keep that consistency. But at the same time, because you're at the completion of a process, you can see that what brought success in the past will not necessarily bring the same success in the future. The only thing that endures is change. And you can rebel against the very thing that brought success. The 50 line fives are the only judges who can really change our codes. These are the only ones who can legitimately change the values in the tribe. They speak from a perspective in which they have gone through the process. And if you have any fifth lines, genetically, you are already equipped. The process is already complete at that level. It's already there as an essence. Wherever you carry the fifth line in your design, you have the completion in your hexagram process. Remember, the sixth line is sitting on top of the roof. It's not really paying any attention. It will legitimize the fifth line, but it's not really getting involved in the day-to-day workings of the hexagram. The fifth line is where we have the completion. So here you're either going to have the discipline to maintain that in whatever direction it's bringing you, or you recognize that though it brought success in the past, it's time for it to change. The grounding comes through the third line in the fifth, no, the third, oh, the grounding comes through, I don't know why I start again, it's not like I'm editing this, is it? The third gate in the fifth line, it's called victimization. When actions designed to overcome confusion alienate others. So when you're trying to bring a sense of continuity, like we've just found in the 50 line 5, when you are rebelling against basic principles or avoiding unnecessary change, there can be a projection around what it is that you're doing. Fifth lines carry a sense of pessimism and sometimes persecution. They can be a little bit paranoid. Ra said this was entirely natural because they're very protective of their reputation and of being called out and not being able to fulfill the projection and being burned at the stake. So perhaps the sense of feeling victimized could be a signpost that something is out of alignment. And of course, if you carry it in your design, it could just be something you have to go through. And it will work out as it's supposed to, not necessarily how the mind thinks it should, but as it's supposed to if you are following your strategy and authority. So the moon is still in gate 53, the gate of beginnings, the root center, format, gate of cycles, part of the channel of maturation. It moves into gate 62 at 1307. This is the throat gate of detail, and it's joining Mars. Mars is here at the moment and making a channel with the North Node in gate 17. This is the gate of opinions, gate 17. So we've had this channel for a little while now. We've got it for 2 more days until Mars moves on. This is the channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being. The moon moves into gate 56 at 23:35. This is the gate of the wanderer, the gate of stimulation, the storyteller. It's another throat gate, and it's collective abstract circuitry, where sense is made out of experience and then shared in a stimulating way in order to engage the collective so that everyone can benefit from the lessons that have been learned, the experiences that have been had, and the progress that has been made. Thank you for joining me for this fifth line. top of the hexagram tomorrow. We're looking, of course, at the 6th line of gate 50. And until then, where is it? Yeah, Alt R. I need one of those. Is it a quick key or a hotkey or an assistant to come and press my buttons for me? I know someone who's very good at pressing my buttons for me. I will see you all tomorrow. And until then, as always, go gently.